I'm going to try to move this meeting along at a good pace. And let's see. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Zoning Board of Appeals, good evening and welcome to the November 18th, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. For all present, let's spend a few minutes reviewing how this meeting will be conducted. For the first 2 hours prior to 9:30 p.m., we shall hold a public hearing on the applications that you have received notice on and that were listed in the Norwalk hour for hearing. After the application is announced by the chair and read by the secretary, the applicant will come forward, state his or her name for the record, and then present the appeal or relief being sought. Please present those zoning issues that are relevant to the practical difficulties or hardship requiring this application. After you or your representatives have spoken, those in favor will have the chance to be heard. After that segment, those opposed to the application will have the opportunity to state their opposition for the record. In the case of an appeal, the zoning staff will have the opportunity to present their findings. Finally, after those against the application have spoken, the applicant and only the applicant will have the opportunity to rebut and respond to the issues raised. The hearing is then closed and the next application called. New applications will not normally be heard after 9:30 p.m. as the board must discuss and act upon these applications. Please note that no further public input is accepted at that time. You are welcome to stay for this portion of tonight's meeting, but should you decide to leave, you may contact the zoning office tomorrow to learn about our decision. Before we proceed tonight, I must remind you that the hearing is recorded and will become a matter of permanent public record. At this time, I'll do a roll call of those board members sitting for tonight's meeting. We have myself, Lee Levy, Greg Brasher, Andy Conroy, Chris Gavrilides, and Ted Diesel. Is there anyone else I'm missing? Then we are all present. We have 5 members that will be voting on the applications before us. The first item on our agenda tonight is the continuation of item 21-081903, City of Norwalk. Mr. Secretary, will you read the application?
Yeah, just give me a minute here. Hey, that Mario Coppola has joined us. It's 21-018-1903, City of Norwalk. So it was back in August when this was brought. Variance of rear setbacks, 223 feet required, 68.45 proposed, and for a new school in a AAA resident zone, a property located at 12 Noah Lot Lane, District 5, Block 32, Lot 13. And the request is that the applicant seeks a variance for the required rear setback for a new school building. Typically a 30-foot rear setback for the zone, but much greater due to the stipulation of special permit requirements. The background, Cranberry Elementary School was built in 1959, and they are planning to build a replacement school. Analysis and findings: a case for hardship could be made due to the need to preserve the existing building until the new school is completed, as well as the goal to maintain existing wooded areas. In addition, roughly half the parcel contains wetlands. Application has been made to the Inland Wetland Agency, the Conservation Commission, and will have to be updated on that. I want to point out that this is partly right and partly incorrect, and we can discuss that as we go along. Thanks.
So we'll ask Alan Lowe to come forward, identify himself, as he is the representative for the city of Norwalk.
Good evening. I'm Alan Lowe on behalf of the city of Norwalk. We're here to present the Cranberry School project. Again, I want to thank the board. This is probably the fourth time we are coming to the board for consideration of a variance request and continue this public hearing. I want to take just a few minutes, just kind of bring us to a little bit of history of this project. Maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, the city was looking to consider a renovation and addition to the old existing Cranberry School. And that was probably like a $9 million project. But during those conversations and evaluation, the city decided to expand the project because the needs are greater. Was looking at about a $19 million, $17 to $19 million project. But as we look at that project, we felt that the city does not want to spend good money after bad money. So the proposal came in to the city to build a brand new building. So during the fiscal year 2021, which is last year, the city funded $45 million for the construction of a new school. In the fall of last year, we hired the architect and the construction manager to start looking at building programming and then consider various options in placement of the proposed new building. I think our primary objective are three. The first one is that minimizing to no impact on existing wetlands. The second one is preserving the wooded area on the property. We have about 33 acres of property, and the wetland takes about a little more than half of the property is considered wetland area and upland review areas. The third one is that our goal is not to move the students to a swing space somewhere in the city for approximately 1.5 to 2 years, so the solution among all those objectives is to leave the existing building assets and build a new building on the property without interrupting the education side of the program. So with that, last year, we went through the initial design phase and looked at all these options of placing the building. And around spring of last year, we come up with the current solution to build the building in the proposed location as we present to the board. So with that decision, with that idea of building the building in the current location, we look at we start develop the design drawings and find that because this is a corner lot, the front of the property is actually not in Lower Lot Lane, it's actually on Field Street. That created a problem in terms of the setback requirement and the special permits. So since then, we submitted a request for the zoning board of appeals in August, and to address those issues, and some neighbor has come forward to express a concern about this proposed building. The board has requested the city to do our best to work with the neighbors to find a compromise. So with that, I think I want to ask the excuse me, the CBA for Mario Coppola, our attorney, Cities Corporation Counsel, to update the board regarding where we've been in negotiation, discussion with our neighbors for the last 2 months or so. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. My name is Mario Coppola. I am the Corporation Counsel for the City of Norwalk. My office is in the law department at City Hall at 125 East Avenue in Norwalk. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I got involved with this project shortly after your last meeting, and I was asked to see if I could work with the neighbors council, Attorney Joel Green, to see if we could find a resolution to the issues of concern raised by the neighbors. And I'm pleased to report that I think we've gotten to that point with the neighbors and their council. There may be some details to work out afterwards with them, but I think that tonight we could propose conditions that should resolve their concerns. We just so you know, over the last approximately 3 to 4 weeks, we met on 3 separate occasions with Attorney Green, his clients, and the city's professionals, as well as city officials and staff. The final meeting took place this past Monday at the site, during which time the city's professionals were able to show the neighbors sample materials, drawings and renderings to give them the, while they're out actually at the subject property, to give them the absolute best opportunity to evaluate and understand what the project will look like when it's completed. Quite frankly, we think it's going to look fantastic and be an improvement. They also were able to review with them other issues such as where plantings would be provided in order to create a buffering that they had requested. Additionally, they answered questions and provided more insight into how certain things would appear at the property, including the lighting, and answered other questions that they had regarding the plan. So with that being said, there was a memorandum that was submitted by Mr. Lowe, the Zoning Board of Appeals, I believe yesterday, and I assume you've had an opportunity to review it. That memorandum proposes 4 conditions that the applicant is willing to agree to. The applicant is willing to amend and has amended its plans to reflect those conditions. And those would be: 1, to increase the evergreen tree screening along the west property line to approximately 90 trees in locations to be coordinated with the neighbors. Number 2, positioning of the dumpsters at the south of the building next to the receiving entrance. Number 3, to relocate the tennis courts and basketball hoops east of the building within the parent drop-off loop. And number 4, to relocate the building 10 feet further north than the original presentation to the Zoning Board of Appeals in September 2021. Those are 4 conditions which, again, the applicant is comfortable with the ZBA adding on to its approval. There was a letter that we received about an hour before this meeting from Attorney Green. I don't know if he's put that in the record yet or not.
We've got it.
Okay, so that letter expands upon some of those conditions which we've proposed within the memo from Mr. Lowe. I was hoping to get this letter a few days ago so that I have an opportunity to review it with my clients. I haven't had an opportunity to review it with any of the city officials, staff, or professionals. But I think that after the meeting, at some point, we'll be able to iron out any further details with the neighbors. But having said that, I would be concerned with the Zoning Board of Appeals adopting the conditions as proposed by Attorney Green, because I have not yet had an opportunity to review the language in that letter. For example, while we certainly agree to provide the landscaping buffer, as we've discussed with the neighbors, in fact, the revised landscaping plans were created based on the requests of the neighbors. The city's professionals were requested to work with the neighbors, find out what they wanted for the plantings, and revise the plan accordingly. One thing that was added, for example, to Attorney Green's letter was that the city would maintain the plantings in perpetuity. And I think that there's no corporation counsel or town attorney in Connecticut that would agree to have an obligation in perpetuity. So those are, having said that, we could work out some sort of a reasonable plan for the city's maintenance of those trees. But again, they're just things that we have to iron out afterwards, and I'm confident we will. I know that Attorney Green was working diligently with his clients up to this meeting, trying to confirm their position on these issues. So I understand that the letter came in late because of that, but I'm confident we'll be able to work together to, again, iron out any details beyond what we hope to have this evening as an approval with conditions as we proposed in Attorney and Mr. Lowe's memorandum from yesterday. Does the Zoning Board of Appeals have any questions of me at this time with regard to our discussions with the neighbors and Attorney Green?
I just want to comment that the letter from Attorney Green is very similar to the report submitted by Alan Lowe. And I would imagine that if there's anything to be worked out, it must be doable. One of the key things that the ZBA had talked about, among other things, but the key thing was, well, noise attenuation there'd be with the school having been moved considerably closer to the lane. And with that in mind, did we have sports activities that could be kind of hidden away behind the building and then create a security issue as well as a noise issue? And it seems that Mr. Lowe's document that he presented to the ZBA cures that.
Yes.
Having reviewed the documents we have, first I want to say I think it's admirable that both sides have worked as hard as they have to come up with an agreement that works for both sides. I think that's admirable. We still need to see, the final documents, but we are in a position to move forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I may at this time, I'd like to ask our professionals, starting with Lisa Yates, to briefly walk the Zoning Board of Appeals through the changes in the plans that have been made to specifically address the concerns raised by the neighbors, starting with the relocation of the building.
I think that is an absolutely necessary step.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lisa Yates from Antonazi Associates. Can you all see the screen I just put up?
Yes.
Okay, so this probably looks sort of familiar based on the last time that we met. I don't know how many of you remember, but we were showing this yellow circle as being the area which is easier to develop on this site due to the lack of wetlands in this area, the fact that it's been previously developed, and the fact that it's not heavily wooded like the rest of the site. This orange mass here, this is the location of the building, shifted 10 feet north from the last time that you saw it. This increases the distance from the side property line only modestly. I think it's 70.52 feet. I could be wrong after the decimal point. This line of trees over here that's colorized, these are all evergreen trees, variety of species, planted in a sort of staggered double row based on our walk of the site with the neighbors, looking back. And, it's November, so the trees aren't, the leaves aren't all down, but we were able to see a little bit better through the deciduous woods that are behind. This green rectangle over here is the tennis court, which I'm going to zoom in here. On either end of the tennis court, we're putting half basketball courts. So that is now moved to the other side of the site. This is our 223-foot setback as before. Another item in the letter that the dumpster location is going to be in this general area. So the last time we were here, it was located down here. This little yellow area here is a potential dumpster pad. This is the other potential dumpster pad. This is actually probably easier to see than this. So from the neighboring areas. What else? The area behind here still has the fire department access as required. This is more of a gentle cul-de-sac now. We have some hopscotch back here and some foursquare. We talked to the principal this morning about painting more squares on there, maybe a map of the continents of the world or the United States. So that kind of activity back here. And we are also screening mechanical elements. This is our generator and transformer screened with evergreens. And that is, I can answer any questions and take us other places if I've missed anything, but that's my brief overview of the changes.
Lisa, quick question. To the west of the building on this plan, there's a blue arrow.
Ah,
And then next to the blue arrow are two green rectangles. What are
yes.
those?
So these are gardens,
Okay,
raised gardens, and this is a spot for an outdoor shaded play area. It's going to have canvas on the top.
okay. I like the garden idea.
Right, and we were talking with the school about the garden, and they may expand, but they want to start small. These are sort of unitized raised gardens. And this is foursquare, and that's hopscotch. But you'll see more painting marks on this as we move forward.
Now, at one point, there was an outdoor amphitheater on the east side of the building. Is that still part of the plan?
There is seating in this area. It's not exactly intended to be an amphitheater.
Okay,
It's more of seating. So when we work outdoor classes are unlikely to happen here. This is more of a where you sit and wait for the bus, where you have a casual contact with a teacher, that kind of thing.
okay,
And then this tree here is the existing large oak tree that's currently in the bus loop. And that's why the building is positioned as it is. So this is sort of this, the bus loop is on one side of the alley of trees and the parent loop is on the other, and it all lines up with our entrance. Even though we moved it 10 feet north, we still pretty much line up with the entrance.
good.
And I'm sorry, this is Alan Lowe again. I believe all these drawings, I think there's like three drawings that has been
Yes.
submitted and amended to our request for variance. So these drawings are part of the updated package that's been submitted to the CBA.
Right, and just for reference, the drawing that we submitted that I just showed in color is this drawing. I just wanted to come forth with a Zoom ready version so we could read the drawing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, I think the discussion by the board and certainly some of the items that we discussed with the neighbors were items that would probably generally be part of a review for a site plan. Some of the issues of concern that we tried to resolve were issues that weren't necessarily connected to the relief that is being requested in the application before the Zoning Board of Appeals. But the approach that we've taken is we're not a developer. The applicant is not a developer trying to get a project done and just wants to do just enough to satisfy neighbors to get approval. The neighbors are residents. They are our clients as well. And so the approach that we took, at least from the beginning of my involvement, was to try to address any and all issues that the neighbors had regardless of whether they were beyond the scope of what was being reviewed here with the ZBA as part of this variance application. So I just thought it was important to put on the record the approach we took, and that some of the conditions that are being proposed by the applicant probably go beyond the scope of what we need to do at a ZBA application, but we were more than happy to do it to try to work with the neighbors throughout this process.
I think you're trying to give us the bigger picture.
Yeah,
I think we
and also
appreciate
to be fair about it, they also spent a lot of time with their counsel, and I think took an approach that I think most people with applications where people have concerns would hope that everyone would take, which is they were reasonable and they worked with us, and there are certain things that they asked us to do that we couldn't do. We explained why, and they accepted, and they for the most part accepted those explanations. So they were also very good to work with and put a lot of time and effort in over the last 3 weeks as well.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question about security on the backside where the fire truck turnaround is. Do we have at Brookside School had an open lane to accommodate fire trucks? And then we ended up with people who shouldn't be driving up and down that lane doing so. So there was a blockage put in place that could be easily removed. Have we any plan here for that?
So this, go ahead, Alan.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, this black line here is a vehicular gate. And the idea is that the fire department can open it. If somebody needs to go work in the mechanical space, they can open it, but it is going to remain closed the majority of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time.
Right. And we're not putting like staff parking or anything like that in the back of the school here.
No,
All right, thanks.
cars and kids, bad mix.
Yeah, bad mix.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Tad, go ahead. Tad, you're muted.
There you
How's
go.
that? How's that?
That's better.
Much better.
Sorry. This is Mr. Coppola. You said you haven't had an opportunity to fully review the document presented as an agreement. It'd be difficult for me to approve this application, which is dependent on that document, without your approval.
I guess in response, I would say that we provided a memo yesterday with what we understood to be conditions that would resolve their concerns. I did ask for the letter sooner so that I'd have an opportunity to review it with my clients. There is some language in there that, quite frankly, I don't know if it presents a problem for us. And so I have to review that with my clients. So far, I've only reviewed it with Attorney Green, who called me as soon as he sent it, and I was in the car driving to have dinner, home for a quick dinner. So he read it to me as I was driving, and I gave him some comments. But we haven't had an opportunity to fully review it with our clients. However, I would be confident that if the approval was given this evening with the conditions as proposed in our memo, that if there's additional issues that need to be worked out, Attorney Green has specifically provided for in his letter that they are not giving up any of their rights
Yes.
with regard to this application. And I will put on the record that the city will continue to make a good faith effort to work with the neighbors, and where we can make accommodations for them and comply with requests that they have, we will do so. Quite frankly, those were the specific instructions that I was given from the mayor. And I think we've abided by them over the last approximately 3 weeks in trying to get this done.
Yeah, we could, Mr. Chairman, we could incorporate those four inclusion of conditions that were mentioned in the letter under the recommendation section. So we could add a fifth, which is that the city continue to work in good faith to resolve differences with the folks who raised issues about the school's construction. I think if you put those 5 things in as conditions into the passage, then I think we're set. I don't think, Tad, that we would have a problem saying that we didn't know what we were getting into. We'll know exactly what we're getting into.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments from the board?
Not for me.
Okay. Not quite sure who to ask to speak next, but is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this project from the public?
Sure. So to be able to participate, please raise your hand if you're in for this project. Just raise your hand. It's at the bottom of your screen and we'll bring you over. So we have Chris. Just state your name and address, please. You just have to unmute yourself, Chris.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. No, I'd like to say that everybody's worked very hard in this direction. I'm not,
Chris, could you please tell us where you live?
oh, sure, sorry. 246 Grumman, corner of Norwalk and Grumman Avenue.
Thank you.
Yep, and, been going through this whole process. I think that we've come up with some good solutions here, and I'm happy with where we are. So it's and I've read everything that has gone through, and I'm just throwing in my 2 cents.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else wish to speak?
We have another one, a couple more. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is April Wennerstrom. I'm on Oxyoke Lane. My daughter is a graduate of Cranberry, and I know this has been an issue for the city for a couple of years. I've been following it, and I know it was contentious or seemed to be contentious a couple of weeks ago, but I understand fully the community as well as the families surrounding Cranberry School's issues and concerns. And I feel like this resolution has been a long time coming, and I really appreciate all the work the city has done. I appreciate the accommodations the families have approved of and agreed upon, and I'm hoping we can move this forward. And just really want to say that this is what community is about. This is what community is about for our children and for our future. And I know there was a lot of work done on both sides. So I just wanted to share my appreciation and my support of moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Heidi Alterman. Just unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Heidi Alterman. I live at 29 Sherwood Street in Norwalk, Connecticut, 06851. And I do think I have a duty to declare I'm here as a parent of 2 children in Cranberry. I was just recently elected to Common Council, but I'm here as a parent. I just want to say I've been on the Cranberry Building Committee as the parent liaison for over a year, and I have witnessed the amount of work that's gone into this project. I do think I can say that I understand both sides. And there's just been an incredible amount of work back and forth. And I really hope that the zoning board does take the city's willingness to work, no matter what the issue is, as like a show of good faith, that they will continue not only to work with the families in question, but in general with the community and especially with the school population. I understand that the variance being asked, these kinds of things don't come up along, that often, but I think it was really like we've gone as on the building committee above and beyond to try to find really like the best possible solution. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been working on it. And I wanted to say thank you to the Zoning Board of Appeals just for taking the time to hear this again. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
So we have two more, Lee. Here's Pam.
Okay,
Hi there. My name is Pam Schneider-Young. I live at 4 Kristen Lane, very close to the school. I have one child still at Cranberry. We've had 3 graduate from there. This project is so important. My husband had been on school governance board and very involved in getting it to the earlier stages. I listened in on the last call, and I'm really amazed and impressed at all the work that's gone into making all these accommodations for those couple of homes that, obviously have some concerns. And I just hope that they were all outlined in the initial, and I hope that there are no surprises coming from this. It looks like everyone's really worked to make these big changes to accommodate, and it's very impressive. It's definitely taught me to get to be more in the know, and that it's nice to see that the city will step forward and make accommodations. I know that we're at sort of it seems that it's the last leg of this project. We're just at the cusp of really hitting an important timeline. And so this is such a critical meeting, and I'm very pleased at what I'm hearing. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping after all these years, it looks like the right work has been done to accommodate so many things on both sides. So I appreciate, as the others said before me, all the work that Norwalk, the city of Norwalk, has done to accommodate those homes. And on the flip side, I hope that where all of those concerns had previously been put through the lawyers, and this has been worked out, so we can get to the point of moving forward. I'm really excited about that. Thank you, everyone, for the efforts.
thank you.
And we have Jessica Jones, the last hand I see up at the moment.
Okay, Jessica, please come forward.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Window just popped up. Hi, I'm Jessica Jones, 307 Newtown Avenue, just over a mile from the school. I just wanted to share that, I have a 7th grader now and a 2nd grader. And this is something that has been talked about at pretty much every PTO or school meeting since my daughter was in kindergarten. So the level of excitement to have this on the cusp of coming to fruition is just so exciting. My daughter's not happy. She's very jealous. But I just want to say I'm so happy to hear that the city has worked with the neighbors and that everybody is really, really putting forth their best effort to get this project moving forward. And I'm just sitting here with bated breath, hoping that we're able to take the next step, and thanking you all for your time and that you've invested in this.
thank you. Now I have to ask, is there anyone participating tonight that wishes to speak in opposition of this project?
And again, to participate, just raise your hand.
Well, hearing none, I will ask Alan or Mr. Coppola to make their final statements.
Mario, if you could, please.
Yes, I just want to thank the Zoning Board of Appeals for your patience with this process, for giving us the opportunity to work with the neighbors to resolve these concerns. I again reiterate my request to adopt the conditions as set forth at the end of the memorandum submitted by Mr. Lowe yesterday, and also to approve the variance pursuant to the most recent plans, which show the updated landscaping and site for the building. If you have no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. Alan, any final comment on your part?
No, I just want to thank Mario. I mean, there's a lot of effort on his part to get this point, and also the Attorney Green on the other side that they work very hard to bring us to this, hopefully a closure on this matter. And on behalf of the city, I've been a city employee for 39 years. We are committed to do everything that we said. We are going to do. It's not a I mean, it is personal in the sense that it is a city project, and it's not like a bait and switch kind of thing. We are committed to do what we say we do, without any question or any doubts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. With that, we will close this item on our agenda and move on to 21-1021-03 Joycelyn Smith. Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, 21-1021-03 Jocelyn Smith requested variance to allow parking within the front setback and variance of front setback requirement 40 feet required, 22.2 proposed for addition to existing single-family home in A residence zone. The property is located at 22 Hillsdale Manor, District 5, Block 2B, Lot 24. And the applicant is seeking the variances as described, front yard setback for an attached two-car garage with living space above. A new driveway will be installed, and the proposed parking within the garage would be within the front setback as well. The background, home built in 1945. The existing front facade is non-conforming, encroaching about 9 feet into the front setback. Staff analysis and findings, although there is existing nonconformity and the parcel has an unusual front property line, an alternative compliant plan depicted below was submitted prior to the variance request before us. There are possibilities to construct a compliant addition as well. That's it. Move on.
Okay, will the applicant come forward and identify themselves?
Good evening. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll take the lead, Jocelyn. Good evening, Chairman Levy, members of the board. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Attorney Nicholas Vitti. I'm with the law firm of Murtha Kalina LLP with law offices in Stamford, Connecticut. And here with me this evening is the applicant, Ms. Jocelyn Smith and Hawthorne Smith, who live at 22 Hillendale Manor. And also our architect on the project, Mr. Andrew Kars, is in attendance for any questions that this board may have. I will start by saying the board heard our presentation at your last meeting. I believe we went through pretty much all the issues on the table except for a couple of two, or shall I say two, that were brought up by the board. We did, I know I heard Mr. Conroy read the application into the record and talking about alternative plans. I think that was hashed out last time as to the non-existence of an alternative plan and the pointing towards the hardship requirement in this application. But I'd like to address for you this evening the outstanding, I'm not going to say issues, but questions that the board brought up the last time, and then let this board ask any questions that they may still have. The first was dealing with the architectural renderings that were submitted and the lack of some of the detail in the basement or garage part of the addition. I will report, and I hope that the board has seen that Mr. Andrew Kars has submitted updated architecturals and that Ms. Maldonado has accepted those and I believe passed them on to you, the board. Ms. Maldonado was satisfied by those renderings. And Mr. Cars is here for the board's questions if they may have any. The other item that was just brought up, I believe by Mr. Conroy at the last meeting, was the possibility of the city ceding a portion of the city-owned property, which creates this kind of faux cul-de-sac that has not been built since at least the 1940s. I will report to you that I've spoken to Corporation Counsel, Mr. Darren Callahan, not with Attorney Capola, but with Mr. Darren Callahan on the process that would be involved in the ceding of city-owned property. It's not a short one, I will say. It would involve getting an appraisal, title search, and having a city department declare that this property really has no value or worth to the city, in that it would be acceptable to transfer it without any consideration to the applicant or property owner. I've been back and forth with the DPW and have not gotten a response, but I am told that to begin that process, it would come with the department head of a city agency making that decision that this property really has no value to the city, and then going through the process of approval, including title search, appraisal, common council approval, and the like. I will say that the applicant is interested in potentially pursuing that route, but that's going to take some time. And I would hope that this board's decision is not contingent upon that process and go forward strategy. So with that, I am not planning on rehashing the presentation because I believe it was complete, other than what I've reported this evening. If any of the board members have any questions or further questions, we're happy to answer those, including with the architectural renderings that were supplementary submitted.
You answered all of my questions that I posed at the last hearing. So I'll ask if any other board members have questions or comments.
Yeah, my suggestion was to make life easier overall, in that it would take some time to approach the city to try to get them to cede the property. I wasn't going to make it contingent for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy.
Any other board members wish to weigh in on this? Hearing none, I'll ask if there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter in support. Hearing none,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and again, if anybody wants to participate, please raise your hand. It's at the bottom of your screen. Not seeing any.
Okay, we'll ask Mr. Vitti if he wishes to make any final comment before we move on.
I would just like to thank this board for your time this evening and for the time over the last meeting. And I'm hoping and respectfully request for this board's approval of the variance requested. I think my client is eager to get towards its reconstruction, having sat with a house in disrepair for quite some time. So thank you again for your time this evening, and good night.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is number 21-1118-01 Tristram Perkins.
Tristan Perkins, represented by attorney Adam Blank. Variance to allow elevating a single-family residence to FEMA flood elevation requirements, which would result in the structure exceeding the maximum height and number of stories permitted in the B residence zone. The property is located at 19 South Beach Drive, District 6, Block 33, Lot 42. Applicant is seeking the variance as described with the scheduled residence uses. Requires structures in a B zone to be a maximum of 2.5 stories to 31 feet to the midpoint and height for average grade around the structure. This request is being made so that the structure may become compliant with FEMA flood hazard zone regulations. The proposed number of stories is 3.5 stories, 1-story variance requested, and the proposed height is 32.66 feet, 1.66 height variance requested. The structure, a single-family residence, was built around 1993 and is currently not compliant with FEMA flood hazard zone requirements. Staff analysis and findings. The purpose of the FEMA flood hazard zone requirement regulations are to ensure that all structures in the flood zone are adequately constructed to withstand a coastal flood event. In the past, the board has looked favorably on these requests for relief from the height and number of story requirements for structures, so long as the proposal is not out of character with the neighborhood and is seeking the minimal amount of relief possible to achieve compliance with FEMA regulations. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Blank, would you please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Adam Blank, attorney for the property owner Tristram Perkins. With me is the architect Chris Stodero, along with the project engineer Brian Smith of DeAndrea Surveying and Engineering. We've given you guys the green cards evidencing notice of the hearing to the neighbors. I'm just going to give you a brief presentation, and the architect and engineer will be available to answer any questions that you may have. If I share my screen. All right. So this is just an aerial to give you some orientation of 19 South Beach is here. You've got Roten Point and Bailey over here. So here's our property. It's the B zone. It's a single family house that's there currently. And you've got the architecturals in this and the zoning location survey. I'm just going to scroll through to show you a sense of what we're looking to do. You heard that it's not currently flood compliant. We want to raise it about 5 feet to bring it up to FEMA Norwalk's flood zone regulations. I won't go through the law on hardship. It's in our papers. And I want to just reiterate one thing that I want to make sure is clear. What we're looking to do is to raise it, and we're doing some cost estimates. It may be that it's lifted and then substantially remodeled, all pursuant to the architectural plans that you have. And it may be that it is demolished and then reconstructed from scratch pursuant to the architectural plans that you have. Either way, it'll look like you see it, but we're not certain whether it's going to be lifted or whether it'll be from scratch, because it needs a lot of work once we start construction. We're only looking for 1.5 feet on the height, and as you know, the height regs have a midpoint and a maximum height. We're within the maximum. It's just the midpoint's off by about 1.5 feet. And we are asking for an extra story, so it'll be 3.5 instead of 2.5 stories. But we're giving you some context here. This is the neighbor's house at 21 South Beach. This is a new construction. It just went up. This house is 2.5 stories. It's 2.5 stories, although they look very similar. And this one's actually slightly taller, but it's 2.5 stories because quite technically under the regulations, these walls are supposed to be breakaway walls. If you build on a breakaway wall or a pier, this area doesn't count as a floor. If you use flood vents, this area counts as a floor, but there's no difference on what the uses are of the interior space in either structure. So it's identical. It's just we're using flood vents as instead of breakaway walls or piers because we're not in there's not much, we're not in a VE zone. based on the flood zone, this solution works well for bringing us into flood compliance. And similar, again, because of the height raise, we're just slightly over the midpoint, but we've cut the roof down instead of expanding it up. And we're actually making it as a deck, which will lower the height so that we don't need a variance for the maximum roof height. Let me see if I have anything else. I think that's really it. Just the variances for the floor and for the 1.66 feet on the midpoint, and that variance be granted whether we remodel or build from scratch. That's really it. If you have questions of me or the architect, and I can happy to show you the zoning location survey if you'd like to see it. Or there's a property of the neighbor's house currently. In fact, they put in a large retaining wall so that they started with an extra foot of elevation, which your regs allow, and we're not proposing to put in fill to gain that foot here. We'll let our property stay the way that it is. And this is the existing house. With that, I don't want to take up more of your time, but happy to answer any questions.
I really don't have any. Any board members wish to ask questions, make comments?
I mean, it seems like we just approved that house next to it last year for the same thing, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
so
did.
That's kind of my thought. Okay, no, I have no questions.
None for me.
All set.
I guess board doesn't have any issues with this. I'll ask if there's any member of the public participating tonight wishes to support this project. Hearing none, I'll ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of this application. Mr. Blank, if you'd like to make your final comments, we'll certainly listen to you.
Just that if you end up granting us the variance, I just again ask that you make sure that the language allows for us to either build from scratch or to raise and reconstruct pursuant to the plans. Thank you.
We will take that up as part of our discussions at the end of the hearing. We'll move on. We'll close this item and move on to the next item on our agenda. And that would be item 211118-02, Waiton 111 LLC, property located at 111 Rowayton Avenue. The applicant, please come forward, identify themselves.
Yeah, let's.
Oh, Andy, I'm sorry. Please go ahead and read this.
The request, applicant seeking a variance to place a transformer unit and pad to supply electric power to an under construction 5-unit residential structure. The required front setback is 35 feet from the center line of Rowayton Avenue. Of zoning regulations, Rowayton Avenue Village District. In addition, for section 118810, ancillary structures and projections, including utility transformers, are granted a 2-foot extension into all setbacks. Thus, the minimum required setback for the placement of the transformer is 33 feet from the center line of Rowayton Avenue. The applicant is seeking a variance to allow for a 25.1 foot setback from the center line of Rowayton Avenue. That is a variance as they measure it of 7.9 feet. And some background, the zoning approval for the 5-unit residential structure was issued on April 29th, 2021, and a building permit was issued and is still valid on April 30th, 2021. Staff analysis and findings. Generally, the planning and zoning department attempts to determine, in conjunction with the property owner and utility company, if a compliant location is possible elsewhere on the property. If there's no other alternative than to place the transformer in compliance with the setbacks, then a hardship may be considered, as the property needs this utility. However, the board should ensure that there are no other alternative locations which are acceptable to the utility company's requirements and can fully comply with current setbacks or reduce the variance requested to the most minimum relief possible. The board should also consider adequate screening to ensure the transformer is shielded from the neighboring properties and street if possible. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Will the applicant now please step forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. For the record, my name is Liz Suchy, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Carmody, Torrance, Sandeck, and Hennessy. Participating in tonight's meeting is Yurik Antashevsky, who's a principal of the property owner, Row 8 and 111 LLC, and also Vincent Hines of Rendis and Mead. He is the project engineer who was involved in it from its infancy and through the construction today. And Vincent will be making some comments this evening as to the interrelationship and communication with Eversource that gave rise to the variance today. The property is located at 111 Row 8 Avenue. It is District 6, Block 1D, Lot 1. It is in the Row 8 Avenue Village District and within the CAM zone. The flood designations on the property are AE 12 and AE 13. Just by way of housekeeping, green cards were sent out, certified letters were sent to abutting property owners on or about November 4th, and the green cards were returned to staff this morning. Hopefully those have made it to the official file. And that notices the tonight's meeting to all abutting property owners and those directly across the street. The property is bordered by Row 8 Avenue to the east and other commercially developed properties to the north and south, and the 5 Mile River is on its west. It's about 18,000 square feet, and as the staff memo indicated, a 5-unit development is currently under construction, which includes parking, site utilities, and public access to the water. Some of the background, the electrical service was supposed to be provided to this development from 105 Row 8 Avenue, an existing transformer at that location, based upon all discussions that had taken place with Eversource prior to and during the approval process for the new structure. Upon further discussion and coordination with Eversource, it was determined that either the transformer at 105 Row 8 Avenue needed to be upgraded, or a new transformer would need to be installed at 111 Row 8 Avenue. So the option was, it was a better option to pursue a new transformer to be located at 111 Row 8, and hence the requirement for a variance, since the proposed location for this transformer does not meet the required setbacks in the Row 8 Avenue Village District. Just after the submission of the application to staff, and staff was very helpful, we did some further research. And in my opinion, there is a state statute that should exempt this from your review. And that statute, is section 16-235. That statute and some case law from the Public Utility Regulatory Authority were provided to staff. And rightfully so, staff determined it was necessary to discuss the statute and prepare a decision with Corporation Counsel. Despite the fact that we believe that the statute does exempt structures and apparatus of electrical utility companies and others from zoning regulations, the Corporation Counsel Office disagreed with our decision. So we are before you this evening, moving forward with the variance application. The practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships really relate to where Eversource in large measure dictates this transformer can be located. There are certain setbacks from combustible walls, from property lines, from the front property line, from travel ways, and all of those, coupled with the Row 8 Avenue Village District requirements of access to the water, create practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships to conform with the setback from the center line of the street. I believe there's one letter of support in the file, and that is from a neighbor directly across the street, Fairfield County Savings Bank. And no other individuals, certainly not the property owners to the north and south, have contacted me with respect to any concerns, objections, or the like with regard to where this transformer is to be located. At this point, I would like Vincent Hines to provide some additional information as to how we got here, what discussions were undertaken with Eversource, and perhaps they may answer some questions that you have with respect to those conversations. Vincent?
Hi, thanks, Liz. For the record, Vincent Hines with Redness and Mead. I'm the site engineer for the project at 111 Roaden. And Redness and Mead has offices in Stamford and Wilton, Connecticut. And as Liz discussed, you know, we had preliminary discussions that reached a point where everybody, Eversource and the property owner, were acceptable of being fed power from the existing transformer that sits in the northeast corner of 105 Roaden Ave. That transformer is in a similar situation in that it's within it extends further into the setback than what is allowed. And we got to the construction level documents and kind of regurgitated our conversations with Eversource. And that got to a point where they came up with that we needed a new transformer to serve the project. Or we needed to, at minimum, upgrade that one, which again would require elevating it to meet the flood hazard zone standards of the electrical equipment being at minimum 1 foot above the base flood elevation. And again, we need to put that on a platform, providing Eversource's typical requirements for access to and from the transformer, which includes a 10-foot kind of clearance zone on the front facing side of the transformer, and that's for their access and safe handling of the transformer as they open it. And then 5 feet off of non-combustible walls and 3 feet off the property lines. Distances, again, all for safety and for future considerations. With that said, and with some of the other zoning approval process requirements, whether it be parking, access to a waterfront kind of esplanade that is required for this zone when you abut the water, that's kind of where we ended up with a new transformer here in the northeast corner of this site.
I might also just add, the staff was really very helpful trying to find the following. This issue came up in a prior application in some way, shape, or form. But no one could find the file, no one could figure out where this issue of transformers being exempt from zoning regulations, where that emerged. I had a conversation with former Assistant Director Michael Rinn, and he recalled it as well. But all the efforts undertaken by Ms. Maldonado simply did not determine which file that emerged out of, or where the written determination that probably related to section 16-235 of the general statutes is located. So we did try, it's because it did ring a bell that a transformer was different than a generator, and transformers were then not subject to local zoning. However, since we can't locate that file nor that determination, hence we're before you. One of the things that Vincent just mentioned is absolutely true. Many other locations that we looked at either impact parking spaces, and the site right now is developed in accordance with the minimum parking spots required for the 5 units. So we would lose parking, which would mean the development would be out of conformance. And there are other locations that just would not be as appropriate as the one that has been suggested. Should there be a desire on the part of the board to grant this variance, certainly the comments that staff raised with respect to landscaping or other visual barriers, for lack of a better word, we would certainly be willing to install those, provided those meet the requirements and the restrictions that Eversource often employs in connection with transformers as well. Well, I have nothing further at this time. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but Mr. Antoshevsky is available and Mr. Hines is also available should you have additional questions, comments, or concerns.
Ms. Sachi, I would raise the question. I'm sure it was looked at. I think I know the reason, but is it because of the flood elevations that an underground vault could not be considered?
Yeah, we've actually had that conversation come up in quite a few recent projects where commission members of various commissions have asked the same question, and the feedback that we've gotten from both Eversource and even from SNU on a more recent application was that they're taking every effort to either taking any effort to not incorporate an underground vault for a transformer, or they plain just do not want to because of prior instances where that didn't go well for them.
Okay, that's one of the valid reasons. So there'll be no objection if we require landscape screening and bollards to protect this transformer?
I would imagine there would be no objections, but it would be subject to final review by Eversource, as they do have certain restrictions as to what, there may be some distance requirements and the like that they would mandate.
Okay. Well, that'll be part of our discussion at the conclusion of this hearing.
We have nothing further to add for our case in chief. Excuse me, unless Vincent, you would like to add something else.
I'd just like to add on to your answer to the last question. Of course, Eversource and meeting their setbacks for landscaping around the transformer. I would note that bollards are, Eversource is not likely to require them for this this location, as this is elevated in kind of a planter area that's already kind of beyond the limits of any potential traffic issue.
I have a couple of questions when we get around to it.
Andy, go ahead.
Can you just tell us what the mean time between failure is for this particular device?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I take it you're representing the engineering side of this. Could you tell us the mean time between failure, MBTF, for this particular device? How often do they blow up?
I couldn't answer that. I'm a site civil engineer with experience in siting these as it relates to side yard setbacks and getting power to the building. Eversource would be the one that could answer a question such as that.
Well, any shielding around it that would provide safety to the adjoining building, which is the Royton Art Center, or out toward the public walking down the sidewalk on Royton Avenue, I think should be considered and required. How wide is that sidewalk that goes in front of the building along Royton Avenue?
Give me 1 second, I could answer that. Yeah, I'm getting about 6.5 feet.
All right, 7 feet would be good. What I saw there a month ago was about 3 feet, but it's been seemingly torn up since then. So whatever was put in was torn out again. That's good, because 3 foot, that would be ridiculous. But that also goes to what kind of space is there between the transformer and the walking public. So you want to make sure that you have some barrier between this transformer and that sidewalk.
Yeah, I would say that there is a site retaining wall. The the public walkway along Route 8 Ave is, I want to say, elevation 7.
Okay.
And the site retaining wall to that planter that I was discussing earlier puts the elevated area at about elevation 10. And then the transformer vault, I believe the top of the vault is elevation 13 to meet the flood hazard zone.
Okay. Think about how you shield the sidewalk from the transformer. It should blow up. I wouldn't say they never blow up because everyone around me is blown up and down the street, post streets that are near my home and all across town. So they obviously blow up a lot, but they don't generally create a lot of the hazard, but once in a while they do. So some shielding would be needed, I think. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other board member have questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask if there is any member of the public that wishes to come forward and support this application. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, I will turn it back to Ms. Sachi for final comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe there is a letter of support from Fairfield County Savings Bank, and if that could at least be noted for the record, that would be appreciated.
Okay, we will note that there is a letter in our file from Fairfield County Savings Bank in support of the project.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Levy. At this time, I have nothing further to add. I think the requirements of Eversource, coupled with the other suggested practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships, would be sufficient for the granting of a variance as requested. But should you have any additional questions for me or Mr. Hines or my client, we'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I've got one quick one, Liz. With respect to Fairfield's endorsement, does Fairfield have an interest in this property? A fiduciary interest?
No, they do not.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we will close this item on our agenda and move on to item E, 21-1118-03, Maxine Vigneault, 26 Shorefront Park. Will the representative please come forward?
No, we got one more thing to do.
I'm sorry, Andy.
It's getting to be a late night. Don't worry about it. Variance of section 118, A10G to allow the accessory structure to be 8.3 from a front property line in lieu of 30 feet required. Applicant has also indicated that a prior interpretation was that this could be viewed as a rear yard, technically lessening the setback required to 6.7 in lieu of 15 feet required. Property is located at 28 Shorefront Park District 2, Block 85, Lot 29. In the request, the applicant proposed to install an in-ground swimming pool, associated pool equipment within the yard setback. And the background of the property is nearing completion on the new single-family dwelling. The dwelling under construction was built under allowable coverage, but total footprint is 4,500 square feet. Analysis and findings of the staff. While it can be argued that the second frontage on North Street presents some difficulty by providing additional setback on the northern side of the property, it should be pointed out that the maximum for lot size for the zone is 6,250 square feet, where the lot size is nearly 4 times that size. Staff would recommend that the board consider the following questions. Could the pool be moved closer to the house to reduce or eliminate the request? Could the pool size be shrunk to reduce or eliminate the request? Can the pool equipment be relocated to ensure it meets setbacks and is not visible from any adjacent properties? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And now will the applicant for this item please step forward and identify themselves?
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Again, Liz Suchy of
Ah.
Carmody Torrance, Sandak and Hennessy, 707 Summer Street in Stamford. And also participating this evening is Dan Vigneault. He is one of the owners along with his wife, Maxine. Mr. Vigneault, I believe, is on. I'm sure he is. May I ask staff, if possible, to screen share the survey that was submitted as part of the application? Certified letters were sent to all abutting property owners on or about November 3rd to notify them of tonight's hearing. The green cards were delivered to staff this morning and should be in the file. The applicants, as I mentioned, and was indicated in the memorandum, are Daniel and Maxine Vigneault. It's 26 Shorefront Park in Norwalk, District 2, Block 85, Lot 29. The property is in a D resident zone. Thank you, Ms. Andrzejewski. As you'll see from the survey that's in front of you that accompanied the application, the area for the pool is identified in the hatched mark, says proposed pool 15 by 30. It is to the north of the circular portion of the dwelling that is nearing completion. The reason that this variance is before you is because North Street, which extends from the top of the screen all the way through what is right now tidal vegetation and off into the Norwalk Harbor. It's a paper street, but it constitutes a street for purposes of zoning and for purposes of setbacks. It is not improved. It is just tidal vegetation on the northern side of my client's property. But since it is shown on maps, we must, setbacks from it must be met with respect to in-ground pools. If Michelle, if you would be kind enough to share some of the photos, that would be great. The property is just over a half an acre. That's generally the location of North Street on the other side of that 7-foot wall that's existed for nearly 100 years. If you could go to another photo, please. Next one. Sorry, it's an old map.
Let's see.
While she's getting that, the property is adjacent to the Norwalk Harbor. And there's an existing concrete jetty with a ramp and a float, an existing seawall. Then there's a gazebo, which you'll see in one of the photos on the top of one of the accesses to the wall, from the wall. And the interesting thing about that gazebo, just as a sidebar, is it was used as a lookout for bootleggers during Prohibition. There are 3 small little openings in that circular building that bootleggers would hang out in with a little fireplace down below and make sure that the alcohol would make it into Norwalk and they wouldn't be chased by the police or wouldn't be stolen. So it's a little bit of Norwalk's history there. The photos, if Michelle is able to screen share them, I think speak volumes. The portion of the property where this pool is proposed sits behind the house that is nearing completion and between the house and the existing wall. The only neighbor that would be able to see it would be the neighbor to the west, and that neighbor has expressed no objection to this application, or the South Norwalk Boat Club, which is on the other side of the wall. And the South Norwalk Boat Club has also indicated it has no objection to this proposal. The interesting thing about North Street, as I said before, is it exists up to a point, and that point is where the parking lot exists for the South Norwalk Boat Club. Thereafter, it has never been improved, nor is there any expectation that the city would improve North Street when it extends into the harbor. So we have to still comply with the setback from that paper street. It would seem to me that this is a most unusual circumstance in that there is not only a non-existent street, but it's also separated by a 7-foot high wall. And it's for a installation of an in-ground pool that really wouldn't be seen by anyone other than our clients and a little bit by their neighbors to the west, whose property is also separated from my client's property by an existing 6-foot high fence. So pools must comply with the setbacks. Because this road, because North Street exists on the regulations, that makes this lot an interior lot, a through lot, excuse me, because there are 2 streets on either side. So there are 2 front setbacks that are applied. So there's a 30-foot setback off north, even for pools. So the applicants have proposed a setback of 8.3 feet to the edge of the pool, rather than the 30 feet required. It's unlikely that North Street would ever be improved so that that setback would be at all valuable. Okay, here are some photos again.
Sorry.
Fine, thank you. That's the house that's nearly almost complete. Would you show the next photo as well? Just scroll through them. There it is again. That's the right side of the house looking from Shorefront Park. That's the gazebo, and that doorway in the bottom leads to the area where folks used to watch to make sure liquor would make it to Norwalk. If you just stop there for a second, won't just go back. Thanks, Michelle. If you look in the middle of this photo, you'll see kind of a patch, an elongated patch right in the center. That's generally where the pool would be located, between the stairway to the right and the stone wall on the left. So that's generally the area where it would be in ground, not above ground, no cabanas, nothing like that, maybe some decking around it, but it's an in-ground structure, not above ground. Would you move to the next one, please? Just scroll, there we go. That's another view of the North Street. That's the vegetation on the other side of the wall is actually North Street. And to the north of that are the slips for South Norwalk Boat Club. And just below this photo, right at the bottom, would be where the pool would be located. Generally in that gravelly area, they are extending 30 feet by 15. If you would just mind going through them just briefly so folks, the board can see what we're talking about. Again, the same photo, the same view of where the pool would be in relation to South Norwalk Boat Club, parking lot, the wall, the vegetation. This is another just example of where the pool would be located, and the neighbor to the west separated by the white fence. I provide you with this next photo. So that is the backyard. Some would ask, why not put the pool in the backyard? Well, then there would be no backyard for this property. Plus it would be very close to the neighboring property. And in addition to that, utilities to be brought to the pool to heat it would have to then be rerouted in a different direction. They now are routed from Shorefront Park right to the corner on the opposite side of the house, directly next to where the pool would be. So that would be a little bit difficult to reroute the utilities for the pool. Again, another just view of the back of the house from the facing north. Okay. Again, the location of the pool. If you could stop there. If you look at the corner on the left, middle of the photo, there's an edge of the house that protrudes from the first floor. That's where the utilities come in today, to that corner of the house on the left. So it's appropriate and makes most sense to have the pool located right in this location. Fed by the utilities there, and all the utilities pool equipment would be behind the front side, behind the required setback. That's about it. There's the little gazebo. And just a better view of the height of that 100-year-old wall, which will remain. That wall runs almost the entire length of North Street from this site, this point, all the way to Shorefront Park on the west. And again, that's North Street with all the vegetation. So as you're just taking a look at these, I think these are just valuable examples of what the uniqueness is of this site as it relates to this request. If you hadn't had the opportunity to view the site, that's the electrical box that exists right now on the western side of the house. And just another view. This is the view from the South Norwalk Boat Club parking lot. No one would be able to see this pool from that vantage point. There it is again. I think that's great. Thank you, Ms. Andrzejewski, for providing these. So based upon the reasons we've just suggested and those that are listed in the narrative, we believe that it's such a unique property that North Street really isn't a street, but a paper remnant of something else. And to require that this pool be set back the full 30 feet off North Street, it does present practical difficulty and unnecessary hardship in light of the fact that it really isn't a street. So if you have any further questions of me, I'm happy to answer them. And certainly Mr. Vigneault can answer any questions should you have them of him as well.
I will assume that this project will be able to meet all state codes regarding pool safety, fences, gates, etc.
Whatever the requirements are, of course, certainly.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one that has to do with screening. Do you think additional screening is needed along the wall, maybe internal to the property, so that you don't have gawking?
That's a pretty high wall, and the face of it from Mack Street, which runs perpendicular to Nor, it's not the easiest wall to scale. But I mean, if my clients deem it appropriate to have some screening on the inside of that wall for further privacy, that's certainly up to them. But I don't think it's necessary given the height of the wall. But if you deem it appropriate that that be a condition of approval, I don't believe Mr. Vigneault would have an issue with it. But again, I don't really think it's necessary given the conditions that exist.
Well, I would think it's more critical for code compliance than anything else.
Yeah, how tall is the wall?
The wall's over 6 feet.
Okay, that complies, and it's not climbable.
And it's sturdy and has withstood nearly 100 years of weather and everything else along that section of the harbor.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Any member of the public wishing to speak in support of this application? Any member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, I'll ask for final comments from Ms. Sachi.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the ZBA. We have nothing further to add. I hope that you can act upon this application this evening, and we thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. With that, I will close this item, and we will go to item F, 21-1118-04, Raisa and Garrett Bennett, property located at 4 Point Road. Mr. Secretary.
The request of variance of section 118310C to allow an addition constructed beyond the front setback line and to permit the location of a generator within the required front yard. The property, as stated, is located at 4 Point Road, District 5, Block 34A, Lot 83, I think. The print on here is a little smeared. Request. The applicant is requesting front yard setback variances for an addition construction beyond what they were approved for and to locate a generator as indicated on the enclosed survey. In the background, the applicant obtained a zoning permit on August 28, 2020 to construct a conforming addition, which would connect the legally non-conforming dwelling to the also legally non-conforming detached garage, which is sited closer to the front yard setback on Point Road. The staff is unaware why the addition was constructed beyond what was permitted. Please note the property received a variance in 1952 to construct an addition in advance of the front yard setback. Analysis and findings by the staff. While the lot exceeds the minimum width and area requirements for the zone, a significant portion of the site is within the flood zone. In addition, the topography rises from the west to the east. Staff recommends that the applicant adequately address why the addition was constructed beyond the setback line. Staff would also recommend the generator be relocated to the rear of the garage, but outside of the flood zone. And that concludes it, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Will the representative for this application please step forward and identify themselves?
Good evening. My name is Mark Demerly. I live in Westport. I've been practicing residential architecture in the area for 30 years or a little over that. And I have projects from Westport to Greenwich, including New Canaan. I was asked to provide drawings for a permit to connect from a garage, a detached garage, to a side entry to the house, which I did. And during the construction process, I was hired just for drawing, so call me if you need me. And I wasn't called until a heat pump application was submitted. And in the meantime, the construction had continued. The first builder became ill, was in this pandemic chaos, and although he finished the foundation, did not call for an as-built survey. There was a long gap between that time and the time that the second builder came in to erect the superstructure, who was under the impression that he had a building permit. Had an as-built been surveyed at the time the foundation was put in, certainly would have come for a variance before any superstructure was constructed, and that this is really an oversight, and there's no arrogant disregard for the code intended here, but in hydroplaning a bit at the foundation point, then it was compounded by actually building the structure. I think it's 3.9 feet over the setback line. The reason that happened is because when we first looked at this non-conforming garage, which I think was built in 1930, was inconclusive as to what was going on behind a masonry mass within the building. But we'll take a look when you open up the wall and see what's going on. So the wall, evidently the wall was opened up, and it was determined by the builder, well, we'll just move the door over 3 feet and that'll make us connect right to the garage bays rather than some other pump room that had been abandoned, which posed some issues. It's 56 inches lower than the garage slab. There would have been headroom. They had a list of reasons why. So the door was moved over 3 feet. Along with it came the 2 closets. I think the entire plan is about 170 square feet now. It was 140 proposed. It contains 3 closets, and a door to the garage and a door to the house. And it's built behind a retaining wall from the street. I've submitted some photographs with the application. From the street side, you see about 18 inches of the building, which will be planted out. And the other side, which is in the X part of our survey, is obviously slab on grade, about 9.5 feet tall. And it became, it was pointed out to me, came to my attention when they wanted to add a heat pump. The HVAC contractor went into town hall to pull his permit. And then immediately we asked for an as-built survey and are now at your mercy, and we respectfully request the setback relief. In the meantime, the owners would like to put in a 24 kW generator, and based on where the existing gas lines are located, it makes more sense to put it at the corner of the garage, which further encroaches into the setback, than any alternate location. The owners, meanwhile, have contacted all the adjacent neighbors to explain to them what happened and why they're going for a variance. And the neighbors, I have written letters to planning and zoning, and I believe they're in your file. They have no objections to our variance. And there's a neighborhood association in Wilson Cove. The president of the association took it up with the board members regarding the generator, and they have no issue with the generator being located where it is. In that particular part of Wilson Cove, this house's property slopes to the water, so it's a slope back up to the road. And then on the other side of Point Road, on those adjacent properties on the opposite side of the street, the slope further continues up. So as far as acoustic considerations are concerned, it can be muffled by topography and by planting, which the owners are happy to do. I think that's noted in the president of the board's letter, that planting if required, as requested, happy to do that. So there you have it. We respectfully ask for your approval on this variance. Thank you for your time this evening.
Any member of the board have questions of this applicant?
I think I'm a little confused as to why we ended up where we ended up, but anyway. How long have the current owners owned it?
I'm sorry?
How long have the current owners owned the home?
I believe they bought the home in 2016, 2015, I'm not sure.
2016.
They've been there a while.
Right. Thank you.
Have they done previous work on the house?
Inside, yes.
With permits?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Further questions from the board? Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak in opposition of this application? Hearing none, I will turn it back to the applicant for any final comments.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. With that, unless there are other comments, we'll close this application and this portion of tonight's meeting, and we will begin our decision making. So thank you. As is typical, we will work in reverse order. So comments from the board on 4 Point Road.
It's just one of those situations that arises where things happened and they didn't have the permission to have them happen. And is it a disaster? No, it's not. I think we could grant the variance based on an accumulation of things over the years that are not appropriate, but hem it in now with an appropriate variance.
Well, you know, I've always been weary of telling an applicant to cut 3 feet off their already constructed project. It's not realistic. And I'm willing to grant that portion of their variance request. But I'm not willing to give them the generator location. I feel that the front yard is no place for a generator. And in a sense, there needs to be a small penalty to pay for their lack of building permits and foundation location survey. Because it ultimately does come down on the owners, not the contractor.
Yeah, I agree with that conclusion. The generator actually exacerbates the lack of compliance. And there must be, it seems to me, a place in the property where if a generator is necessary, it could be placed in compliance.
Lee, I got a question for you. An opposing view. You know, I know that like 3 months ago, we had a gentleman who built in the setback. I can't remember the exact property, just by a foot or two. So I'm just curious on what makes you think this one is different? Because I feel like if we allow this, you know, and people come in and claim ignorance, like, are we setting a precedent going forward? Like that's my concern. Because I know that we're having that other person do like move his whole porch into the house and take away space from the house. So like, I'm wondering like what makes this different?
I mean, Greg, I agree. It's hard to, where do you draw the line in the sand?
Yeah.
I think before you joined the board, it was soon after I did, we had an applicant that came forward. His contractor made an error and it would have required cutting a slice off of his addition from 0 inches to I believe a foot and a half. And we directed him to try to purchase additional land from his neighbor. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Contractor made a mistake. He didn't set the exterior wall parallel to the property line. He set it parallel to the house. And we didn't make him tear it down. And I feel the same way here, that, you know, I don't feel it's necessary to tear it down. I don't think it's that major a violation. No neighbor has complained about it. The association has not complained, and they're even willing to accept the generator. I'm not. Yeah, I think we have to ask ourselves, at what point do we say to an applicant, tear it down? And we've done that when the mistake has been so blatant, like that one house where we asked them to tear down the front porch. So I agree with you there. You know, we don't have a set policy, and I think we have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, we've had egregious, over the many, many years, we've had egregious examples of people deciding to build something different from what they had a permit to build. For instance, a 2.5-story structure downtown Rowayton became a 3-story structure. And the zoning officer saw it, stopped construction, and then they were required to tear off the top floor and put it back as a 1/2-story. So there are times that we do take that extreme position, but I don't see that in this case.
And I agree with you, Andy.
We've, in the past, I don't know if you recall, I forget the street that the house was on, but the porch was off maybe a foot, and it wasn't a big issue. We made the gentleman, I think it was off a foot, not even 8 inches or so. And we made him tear down that porch and rebuild it. But I think that was a mistake. So I'm in agreement with Lee on this one.
Okay.
So we generally agreed that the generator is not passing muster, but the remaining variance request does.
That's the way I feel.
Tad, unmute yourself so we know what you think.
Tad, would you want to
I'm
move?
pushing the button.
There we go.
Sorry. I agree. I think that that's the appropriate decision.
Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion that we grant the variance for the addition that was built in error, but we deny the application, the portion of the application for the generator proposed to be located in the front yard.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 211118-03. Maxine Vignew, 25 Shorefoot Park. The in-ground pool. Comments?
Yeah, I'm just not sure about this. And here's why. There have been issues in the past where people really want to put pools more convenient to the house. And generally speaking, that isn't an issue for me. What is an issue is that there has to be a really, really good reason for it. And I think there's an almost good reason for it in this case, but I'm not so sure that there's a tremendous hardship involved.
Well, I would
Anybody else
agree.
have a thought about this?
They've presented absolutely no hardship.
I feel like if you really wanted a pool, you would have built the house differently.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is a distinct afterthought on the part of the property owner.
Seems like a nice to have to me.
Being a California boy, I can tell you that we got a lot of weird shaped pools in California precisely because they didn't meet the zoning requirements.
Other comments?
I think there's space on this property to move the pool and put it into compliance.
It
Or
seems
come
to
up with
be
a
more
whole
of
lot better.
a preference
Come up with a
rather than a
better
hardship.
Plan.
Sorry,
Yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, it just seems more of a preference than a hardship.
Yeah. I mean, I see a rationale that says this is a good place for a pool, and then from there, it kind of falls apart. I think they can go back and work on it some more, come up with a better solution, particularly since it is an afterthought.
Would someone like to make,
We could deny it without prejudice so that they could come back with a better pool plan.
I would agree. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, so made.
So we'll ask the applicant, will deny this without prejudice and allow the applicant to come back with
A
a
more
more
compliant-
zoning compliant plan.
Yeah. It could be that they'd come back with one that's not precisely compliant, but a whole lot better effort than this one.
I'll second it. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item D, 21-1118-02, Rowayton 111 LLC.
I'm just going to mention briefly, because I don't know that it makes a big difference, but there was a news article that mentioned that Fairfield County Bank is a part owner in the new structure. That's why I asked about whether they had a fiduciary interest. Now, we all know that the press never makes factual errors. So I don't know, but I think I'm going to discount the letter. I think it is a difficult problem, and I think we need good shielding. The entrance and exit to the art center, which is immediately next door, and kind of in the vicinity of where they're talking about putting this,
I don't think it's next to the art center.
You walk along the side of the building and then enter there, as well as to the front to see the art on display, but the classes are held upstairs, and that's how you get there. So you're exposed immediately to the lot next door. It's right on the edge of the lot.
Are you talking about the same location? I think I think you were talking about different locations. Andy, you're talking about the one across from the hardware store. This is one across from the pizza place.
I think I am.
Look at the
111 is directly across the, maybe I might be off by one, but 111 is directly across from Fairfield County Bank.
Right.
That
That is not next to the, just for your own mental where it is, that's not next to the art center. The art center is the new one down across from the fire department.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think with this, it's not a good idea. However, I don't think there's a better idea. And it seemed to me that on the call that we don't really have any other recommendation, because it seems like there's a lot of Eversource requirements that we might be unfamiliar with to determine whether or not is this the best place or is it not the best place. Like, I do have your concern, Andy, about like how close it is to the sidewalk. You know, that building is basically on top of the sidewalk, I think, as you know. So like, I just don't know, like, is there even a plan B on this? I agree that screening.
Greg, can you remember what, since I got the wrong building there, do you remember what the building is that's immediately adjacent?
Here you go. You see my screen?
It says you're sharing, but nothing's there.
Does anyone else see it?
There you go. It's there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So this is right across from Relocate Pizza. That's that office building there. That's there. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but that's where their electrical box is. There, I think they're proposing it right where this steel thing is, right there.
So they said northeast. North is the other side of the lot.
Yeah, I think it's the other side.
You're thinking
it's over that way, yeah. So
well, if this is the building, go back, Greg, go back.
Just a little bit.
A little bit further.
Stop.
Notice financed by Fairfield County Bank.
That's all that.
Jeez Louise. How about that?
The other funny thing, just long as we're showing this here, you can see here that that's the new building. The second I go one more screen over, it turns into the old building. See? That building on the left there is the one that's knocked down. So if you're saying it's going to be right here, kind of by this blue car.
Well, they were trying to move it into the northeast corner, and then they had to keep it back from the center line 35 feet, and then they were moving it out closer. So if you take a sidewalk in 7 feet, then you have people walking by the thing. If it blows up, I think you need to shield it. That was my only real point.
Yeah.
Well, we could just do this on the condition that there's safety screening around the transformer as required and landscape screening.
And Greg, thanks for dredging up the video there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to put that together, Lee, in the form of a motion?
Well, I make the motion that the transformer be visually screened with landscaping as determined by the zoning staff, and safety screening provided for pedestrians as required by state code.
And second that.
State and local, if you don't mind.
Well,
I don't want to overrule the state. Yeah, what I
no,
mean?
no, I find state and local code. Although state code overrules local.
In certain instances, it doesn't, but let's not go into that.
Okay,
That's
we
too much
won't
law
get
for
that.
one night.
But we'll say state and local code.
Terrific. I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are unanimous in our approval. Okay. Item 21-1118-01, Tristan Perkins, 19 South Beach Drive.
I mean, it seems like this is consistent with what we've been approving in that neighborhood, given the one right next to him was just recently demolished and raised, and we provided a variance on that. Then I think the one kind of diagonal out on the point there, I think we did the same thing.
I would agree. This is
I thought there
what
was
is
one thing
going
that-
on.
I didn't think the carte blanche request was anything we've ever approved before.
Build new or build.
Or build, repair existing or build completely new. If you build completely new, they're saying, well, gee, it should look like the drawings we gave you. Okay, so we can
We
make a
could put
contingent
the
on staying in the.
stipulation on our approval that should they decide to tear down and build new, that they come back to us for a review if conditions change. I don't want to give them carte blanche.
Well, I think if they stay within the footprint and stay within the number of stories that they provided us and stay similar to the drawings they gave us, I'm okay with it. But
Okay.
it has to be specified rather than just, hell, build whatever you want there.
Well, we could say that, we're approving the elevation and renovation of the existing structure. And we also consider this an approval of an entirely new structure to
To
be
stay
built,
within the footprint.
to be built on the proposed footprint and within the building envelope.
And similar to the drawings that they said
Yeah.
they were going to make it. Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm never for carte blanche. I mean, boy, that could burn us really good.
If I may, I just want to remind that if they do present, if this does get rebuilt and it's moved in any way, shape, or form, they do have to come back to the board because it is considered a different plan, a different drawing than that was presented here.
That was my thinking at the beginning.
But
is if
John,
they're
don't you
gonna tear
agree
it
that we
down-
should specify those three things?
Well, absolutely, but you could specify it in your
the motion.
But at the same time, if they do decide to, if they do decide to rebuild and anything, is you're approving not just the design and the height and the stories, it's also the location of the house. You never know that if it moves back even 2 feet, who knows, maybe a neighbor all of a sudden doesn't like it. And so they have to have the right to be heard.
Right.
The fact that they don't like that's moving.
Okay, but I think if we specify what Lee just said, I think that'll do the trick. And then we know we have you watching.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I need more notices. No, oh, sorry.
Okay. I think we've nailed that down. Do I need to restate that?
No, I don't think so. I think you stated
Okay.
it well. I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor of approving the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried 5-0. And moving on. Item B 21-1021-03 Joycelyn Smith, 22 Hilldale Manor.
As far as I know, they did exactly what they were asked to do. So.
I have no issue. I think they did exactly what we asked. They've made the inquiry into acquiring the abandoned city property. And I can't ask anything else of them.
I'm in favor of this application.
You want to make a motion, Chris?
Sure. We'll grant the application
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we have a unanimous decision? Good.
Ed, you in there with us?
I said aye.
Okay.
Yes, I heard Ted.
I missed it.
Okay.
I didn't see his lips move.
The mustache hides it.
That does. Okay, we're moving along faster than we've ever moved before. This is excellent.
Well,
But we reached no a lot.
item 21-0819-03. 12 Noah Lot Lane.
I think that they pretty much done what we really wanted them to do, and they have gone way beyond that. And they're at the point where the neighbors are relatively content. And we do have something that we could frame our approval around.
I agree, but we need to add item number 5 to that list.
Yep. All right. So I've got, I don't want this guy's letter. I don't want to use Green's letter, in case you guys are looking at it. I'm going to use the one from Alan.
We should use the Corporation Council's letter
Yeah,
contingency.
down in the last paragraph with the bold recommendation, and then items 1, 2, 3, and then to the next page 4, and then we'll let Lee add item 5.
Oh,
You want me to read them out loud?
go ahead and I'll try to remember what we talked about for item 5.
Yeah, I think I do remember it. Let me just see if I can phrase it. We wanted to make sure that there was a fair and deliberate process to reach an agreement, something like that.
Boy.
Which, because we're incorporating the agreement in the decision.
Yeah.
1, increase the evergreen tree screening along the west property line to approximately 90 trees in locations be coordinated with neighbors.
All right.
Alan makes a more general statement than Green, the attorney, made. Number 2, positioning of dumpster at the south of the building next to the receiving entrance. What he means by that, because he didn't go quite far enough in that statement, is more convenient to the janitorial staff. They don't have to cross across a parking area, and less close to the neighbors. Number 3, relocate the tennis courts and basketball hoops east of the building within the parent drop-off loop. Is everybody clear on what the parent drop-off loop was? That was kind of like that big sports area that they're going to build where the old school would have been. And then 4, relocate the building 10 foot further north than the original presentation of the ZBA. And then 5, however you want to phrase 5.
And I'm drawing a blank.
Is that perpetuity? Is that what they were concerned? Like, is that's not number 5? Like, we're not agreeing to that.
No, we didn't
No,
we didn't include the perpetuity length.
Okay.
Folks, number 5 was a continuation of a consultation, a good faith consultation.
Good faith, yeah, that's the right
with
phrase.
Thank you.
the school community about the development and enactment of the plan.
Right.
I think Tad stated it very well.
You said it exactly right.
And with those 5 contingencies, I move approval of this application.
I second, Tad.
Okay, all in favor of approval? Aye.
Aye. Did you have a question, Chris? You're unmute yourself. Oh, you're saying aye. Okay, got it.
So we're unanimous in our approval of
Yeah, that's good.
the Cranberry School.
Super duper. Super.
Thank you. Okay, we have minutes from 2 meetings to approve. Has everyone read the minutes?
I started to go through them and got to a couple pages and had to put them down. They're pretty darn lengthy. Did anybody actually go through them all?
I actually did.
I did.
Good. Good.
The only notes I have made is from the October 21st meeting. I felt a couple of words needed to be clarified. On page 2 of that, about 2/3 the way down the page, there's a 2-line paragraph that says, a member of the board asked why they could not use a solution. I'd like to know who that board member was. It should be on the tape.
So do you want to delay approval of that particular set?
Yeah, well, I have one more. On page 3, about 1/3 of the way down, it says, Mr. Beausoleil said they were willing to downside to 500. That word should be downsize.
Okay. With correction.
And I think that was it. That was all I had.
Anybody else have correction?
Not me.
None.
Okay, Doke, do you want to keep that one set of minutes out?
I would say that I would move to approve the minutes from meeting of October 19th as
And
presented.
hold off the 21st, yeah.
And hold off on October 21st until we get a clarification on who that board member was.
Yeah, okay, good. So moved, and I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now for the worst part of the evening.
I know, I thought this was pretty terrific.
And the last item we have is our annual board election.
We have 2
And
people to elect.
we have a secretary and a chairman to elect tonight. And I will take nominations for secretary.
I nominate Andy Conroe to serve as secretary.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I am dropping off in January, so I won't be running for either of the 2 open positions.
Okay.
Chris,
and
secretary for?
I will also.
No, I'm not interested. Are you?
Well, it's good. It's good training to become secretary and then to become chairman after doing that. But
It's not a difficult job. All you need to do is know how to read.
kind of.
No,
Actually,
you
the
need,
job description
you
is
need
more.
more than that. And I didn't mean to degrade the position.
So we don't have someone. So now we'll move on to chairmanship.
I'll toss
been
my
in-
name in
Well, we've
if
been in
anyone
this-
wants to nominate me.
All right. Well, you can nominate yourself. There's only 4 of us that can participate in this. This position has to be done only by the regular board members. I also request to be chairman.
You do.
I do.
If you request to be chairman, I will support that and I will take up secretary.
That would be terrific, I think. That's one of the best outcomes, unless we can talk Chris into it, because I want to see Chris chairman in a couple of years.
I'd like to see
I don't think
some-
that's gonna, but I'll second Lee's
Suggestion.
suggestion. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing. It's a nice compromise.
Let's just vote on chairman and then we'll move on back to the secretary. And if you're acceptable, I'll accept the chairman position and nominate Lee to be the secretary.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a new secretary and a new chairman.
We need to
Now,
finalize.
but while we're talking, because there's a limit as to who can be chairman, is there anybody here that would recommend that we elevate at least one of the remaining people to become a full board member? Remember, there's 5 of those, and we're going to lose Greg.
And Ted.
Well, Tad's on the, actually, there's 2 boards. There's a 5-member board and a 3-member board.
Yeah.
The 5-member board is the regular appointments, and the alternate appointments are the 3-member alternate board. So we're going to lose Tad off the alternate board. We already have one open on the alternate board. So we're in a world of hurt, really. And on the full board, full member board, you have Chris, Greg, myself, Lee, and Greg is leaving us. So we need to replace Greg. Does anybody have a suggestion? I was thinking about
Well,
Marilyn.
I think Marilyn has done a very good job as an alternate.
I think so too.
She's got interest in learning more, which
Yeah.
I think is one of the most important things.
And she attended all the training sessions, which is not something that we've all done.
Yeah. I'll move to nominate Marilyn for elevation to the regular board.
Yeah, so let's ask that she be appointed a regular member, and then they can come up with 3 alternates, because with
Yeah.
Tad leaving us, 1 open, and then Marilyn vacating the position, we need 3 alternates.
Okay.
I think that's the best of possible outcomes, unless somebody has another suggestion.
No?
All right.
Well,
Well-
Andy, between you and I, we're going to have to start whispering in Harry's ear.
Not only that, I've been whispering in some of the common council folks here. Greg reached out to a common council member of some influence to try to get him off the dime. We haven't succeeded yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think, with the recent election,
I can ping him again. I asked, John was really focused at that time. I think Andy running for mayor. He didn't do that. And then he ran for council. He won that. I can reach back out to him and just say, hey, look, this needs to be addressed. You're going to lose a third of your board here. It's going to be all new people. Like, let's get going.
Actually, any slight jiggling of the earth mantle, and we could lose more than a third.
Okay. I'll hit him tomorrow. Remind him.
That's terrific. And Lee, I thought you did a great job as chairman. I'm
well,
not knocking.
I learned an awful lot from you and God, I can't remember his name.
Taylor?
Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, two very experienced, very knowledgeable gentlemen. And,
Mr. Strubinger hung in there until he was 93. That
Yeah.
takes some real doing.
It does. Okay, well,
Anyway.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the hearing tonight.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone,
Thank you
have
all
a
for
good
attending.
holiday. And we
Happy
will,
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy
All
Thanksgiving.
right. Thank you, John.
Yeah, John, thanks for your hard work. Cheers.
Hey, no